Thank you. I can't follow him. He was bloody good. Very annoying. Everyone, never mind. We're going to talk about red flags for search engines. We're going to talk about some of the things that you may not realize cause problems for your website. I want to start with the notion that we all know that the internet is big. But when you put that into perspective, it changes the way in which search engines think about your site compared to ourselves. There are 400 billion stars in the Milky Way, give or take. I counted them all. 400 billion. In the last 90 days, or every 90 days, we see nearly 1 trillion URLs on the internet. 1 trillion. It's a lot of stars. It's an awful lot more pages. But the really interesting thing is that there are 8 billion people on the planet. If there are 1 trillion web pages and 8 billion people, think about your content in context for a second. Every person on the planet has to read 114 separate pages each before the content has been read even once. So when you're sitting there looking at your content and thinking, I want 10 visitors, 1,000 visitors, 100 visitors a day, whatever it may be, bear that in mind. Because a person that reads your content becomes a lot more valuable when you realize that there's only 8 billion people on the planet and they have to read that much content for your content to be read once. The internet is big. And this means that search engines have a very different perception of what's important to what we do when we're looking at our websites. There was these guys who wrote or coined this phrase in the 70s, judgment under uncertainty. And they wrote a book about it. And it applies to the SEO industry and to the web industry in general so very, very much. The problem that we have is that we see things from our perspective. We spend the time looking at our website. We spend the time, therefore, making judgments about what are going to be good and what's going to be bad based on the things that we can see, based on the things that we can measure, based on the things that we appreciate. The idea of it came to the idea of, you know, the known unknowns and the known knowns and those kind of ideas. We don't think about them because we can't measure them. And if we can't see them, we assume that we've got to change something that we can. And this is a grave, grave mistake for search engine marketers. It's a grave mistake because it's not the data that the search engines are seeing, and it's not the data that search engines care about. We make decisions based on what we see, and the search engines make decisions based on the fact that there's so much data that they've got to get rid of all of it. They've got to get rid of the crap. There's 916 billion pages that they've seen in a few months, and most of it has got to be rubbish because there's only 8 billion people. This is my website. This is the first website I ever made based on its latitude and longitude in the world. I used to write and run murder mystery evenings for a living back in the 90s, and I wrote a website and I decided, right, I'm going to have my website in that data center there because I drive on it between work and home. And I want to know what it is because I don't get this internet stuff, and I want to be able to bang on the door if somebody steals my data. I want my data back. I really thought that. And the only thing that they had going for them, apart from being close to me, was that every Thursday they produced an analysis of my log data in the 90s. And every Thursday I could see where my visitors were coming from. This is every IP address that we have mapped in Majestic's data, plotted on a longitude and latitude graph. All of a sudden my dot is really rather insignificant, isn't it? It's not about what's on my dot for the search engines so much as how my dot relates to every other dot on the internet. If you put that into human terms, it's not about your brochures, It's about whether you take them out to conferences or whether you hide them under the stairs. It's not about, it's not about your shop. It's about whether your shop is on the high street or whether it's tucked away in a place that nobody ever has any footfall. And it's like that for the internet. When you put all these dots together and you see how these dots are connected, that's how a search engine works. This is how a search engine understands how your profile fits into the other 916 billion pages. So the links to your website, the links to every individual page of your website, these are important. These mean something. These are like roads on a map. You take a map of Holland, the motorways are big, thick roads. There's lots of people probably traveling around that motorway. Not necessarily, but it's an important road. And then you've got the little roads, and then you've got the mud tracks. No one ever goes down. So if you've got your links coming into your website from a very, very tight location, this can say something to a search engine. If, for example, every single one of your links comes in to your website from this town, this city in Amsterdam, which I can't pronounce, then that says something. Is it good or is it bad? If it comes from exactly the same IP number or the same data center, well, okay. Who's talking about you? Probably you and your mate, and that's about it. So that can be a red flag. Secondly, links coming from too far and wide. Is that natural? Is that how the world would see your business? Is it appropriate for your website with your bakery in a town I can't pronounce in Holland to suddenly start getting all of its links from Singapore? Links coming from too far and wide also can be a red flag. And the third one about links is actually the IP address itself and how many websites are on that IP address. And we'll come on to an example of that as well. All these three can be red flags. Doesn't mean to say that it's bad, but they are flags for a search engine that is looking at a worldview instead of your website. So this is my personal blog and the links to my personal blog as mapped in Majestic's data. Is this appropriate? Probably. I talk a fair bit in the States, not so much in China. Never even been to Japan. Mostly around the UK. Yeah, that's not too bad. Maybe. I think it's appropriate. It reflects. If my website had a link profile like this, I think it would be a different case. So the website that has this link profile, is this saying something to the search engines? I think it is. What this is telling me is that this better be a worldwide website. This better be an HSBC. This better be something very, very large. What do you reckon? We'll find out in a couple of minutes. I'm learning, always learning. I think this is a red flag. This is a red flag unless this is an international company. And we'll show you the company in a minute and the effects that that's had. And the third one about the links is IP numbers and crawl capacity. So we said, I think Yoast said earlier on, that server load is something that Google pays attention to. The problem is, if we're one of the biggest web crawlers in the world, if we decided to spend all of our resources just crawling one website or one IP address at any one time, we would break them. We would be, by default, a denial of service attack. And Google has that problem as well. They've got very high crawl capacity. So they need to make decisions on how much data, how much crawling a search engine can do in any period of time on a particular web server. So this website here, welcome.ac.uk, very big website, really, really important. But there are also 2,381 other domains on the same IP number. Now, I would imagine that Welcome have got some control over their IP number, but there's an awful lot of other apparently unrelated websites on here as well. And if you're going to make some maths on there, you've got to ask yourself, do you want to be on the same IP number as 2,381 websites when you only think about yours? Because every bit of crawl has to be loaded not just about your website, so yes, you want to make your website fast, but also you need to understand that if you've got a 10-page website and there's 20 million other pages on there, and Google can only crawl 10 million pages a week for this particular IP address, then you're not going to get your share of crawl capacity. So cheap hosting can be a problem, and it can be a red flag. You don't need to see a website to know things about it. This is the anchor text for the website that I showed you just earlier on with the IP numbers spread around the world. So we haven't looked at the website yet. How many people think this is a spam website? It's a spam website. If you've got this kind of anchor text for all the links, Google doesn't have to even look at the website to have made that decision. All the links are coming in are for Viagra, cheap Viagra, various variations of the word Viagra, and Canada. Well, Canada is interesting because all of the links were coming from China and Southeast Asia. And so, unsurprisingly, Google has banned this website. It's in there. If you type in the whole website, then it's got there with one link. It doesn't really need to go very much further, really. The red flag's extreme. So your link profile is very, very important. It says a lot to a search engine because they're looking at a lot of data. And we've already mentioned Gary and seen my t-shirt earlier on. But he also said earlier on this year that confirmed that PageRank is still a big part of the algorithm in there. And so it's important, I think, for us to understand why PageRank is not something you can influence without understanding your place in the world. The reason that the PageRank algorithm works is that it takes the concept that if page A links to page B, links to page C, links to page D, then some of the influence of page A makes it all the way to page D and beyond. So if you've got a link from the BBC, that may link to a history channel, that may link to another page, that might link to another page that links to your little page about archaeology in, downtown. Name I can't understand or pronounce in Holland. I'm so sorry about that. I really tried. And it also tells us something else. It says that it's a decay algorithm, and it says that this page over here is probably more influential than this page over here because of the map. Even though both of them have got 3 links coming into them, this page over here is much more influential because it's more central to the map. It's more part of the ecosystem in which it's trying to operate. And this is the basics of the PageRank algorithm, but it fundamentally changes your world because content has a different meaning at this point. If you try and write more and more and more and more content, well, firstly, you're contributing to that 114 pages per person, but also you're not necessarily getting to the hub of the heart of what it is that you do. If you've got one product, maybe one page. So then it's all about the links. And as soon as it becomes all about the links, if you've been involved in SEO, how many people are in agency world? How many people? Yeah, okay. Half, third maybe. How many of you, or even if you weren't in agency world, have had the question, how many links do I need then? Yeah, fair number. If you're the CEO or the marketing director of a company, and you figure that this SEO thing's important and links are important, it's a natural next question. How many links? And our usual question, our usual answer as SEOs with everything is, it's not that simple, it's not that simple. It's absolutely not. But that's not really a very helpful answer to them. So we need to explain a little bit more about why it's not that simple. And the truth of the matter is that a link from one web page is wildly different to a link from another web page. So if this image on the right-hand side is a map of the internet, and each little Lego dot is a different page, and page is important here, not site, by the way. We'll come on to that. The number of pages that are important, the number of pages that are at the top of the pyramid, very, very small. Number of pages at the bottom of the pyramid, masses, masses, and a lot more than can be shown in a pyramid. Honestly, 99% of the content on the internet, crap, absolutely crap. So the second thing you've got to learn is that when a new page, a new piece of content comes out, it will always start with 0 links at the bottom of the pyramid. Because even if it has got links from itself, Google has yet to go and recrawl those pages and then put it up there. Now, Google can do that quite quickly on some sites, but if your site is a small site, it may take some time for that new content to get seen. So you are always going to start with a new piece of content at a different place in the pyramid, at the bottom of the pyramid. The third thing here is that internal links wildly affect the strength of any one individual page. And systems like Majestic, which look at all the external links into a web page, are very helpful. But one of the problems is that the links may be going to the home page of a website, then you may be linking to an internal page. That internal page has no external links, and you may get a little shell-shocked and not see that this internal page is very, very important because of the way that you've built the internal links within the website. So to deal with that, we do try and estimate page strength. If we can estimate the value of any page relative to the others, then we can make some kind of assumption as to the quality of a link that might come from that page to my web page. And there's numbers of ways of doing that. MozRank have a maths which is based around it. Majestic use citation flow, which is a proxy for the PageRank algorithm. It does the same sort of thing. And then Google, of course, has the PageRank algorithm as well. All those three systems look to evaluate the pages and give them a score. And then what we do anyway is we turn that into a score that we can interpret, something between 0 and 100, so that we as humans can make some kind of interpretation. But we use this pyramid. So a score of 26 is a lot more than a score of 24. It's not just a little bit more than a score of 24. But search engines, including Majestic and including Google, have one more problem. And they've got a decision tree dilemma. So bots will go to a web page and will crawl the web page. And Majestic will invert it and will show you the links from one website to another website, and by page by page. But of course, they may be linking out to lots of other pages from that page. So what is a bot to do? If every page has 4 links on it, then it makes a decision, crawls that page. It's got the same amount of CPU time for its next crawl. Which of those 4 does it do? Does it try and do all 4? Because then we're going to have another 4 on each of those 4 pages, and we're going to have 16, 64, and so on. Every bot is going to have a resource issue. So we've got a decision tree problem. But even if we get over that one, we've also got internal links. And if we've been looking at the external links coming into web pages, up until recently, we've not really been paying attention to how this flow of value happens within a website. So Majestic has tried to do it using its algorithm of citation flow and trust flow. Other systems try and use other methodologies. But ultimately, when you're looking at your web page, or your client's web page, or your competitor's web page, and you're seeing all the links that come into that site, then up until recently, we've been seeing the links from other websites coming in. And that is only giving us half the story, because the maths is done at a page level, and the maths doesn't care, Google doesn't care whether a link is from one website to another website. It cares, in its principal form, about a link from one page to another page, whether it's on the same site or not. So Ahrefs, which is our main competitor, has started to also report on the number of external links on those links that are coming in. So these are the links coming into my site from WooRank, and WooRank is also linking to 23 other web pages on other sites as well. And so we've been playing catch up as well. We do the same thing. We've now decided that we need to also tell you and tell people about the internal links to those pages as well. So now, if a page is linking from another website to me, will not only tell you how many other links to other websites are on that page and how many domains, but also how many other internal links they've got on that web page. Because we need to know that if we're going to evaluate our place on the internet, right? We're going to need to know that because if there's 20,000 other links on that page, we're not going to get that notice. We're not going to have any effect in that maths moving forward. So how we fit in the world, very, very important. Other red flags, also very, very important. There may be one or two people that understand what this means. Is there anyone? Anyone knows what this means? This goes back a long, long time. Blueline.jpg. This was the first time that I saw a search engine really looking at HTML code and figuring out a spam problem, a red flag. So Blueline.jpg comes from a piece of software back in 2004, 2005, I think it was when it was biggest. It was called Web Position Gold. And Web Position Gold created doorway pages so that you could create lots and lots of pages so you can have more links coming into your site. And the idea was that you could spam the internet with lots more content. Google's PageRank algorithm would see much more links and therefore you would rank higher. But lazy SEOs just went for the default. Just press this button, it would create lots and lots of doorway pages, and every single one of them had a little image on it because somebody had told them that an image on a page was going to be better for SEO than not an image on the page, and every single one was called blueline.jpg. This is a red flag. And back in 2007, a few years later, Google made it official, the first time I ever saw that they outed and pretty much banned a piece of software. I think Web Position Gold is still going somewhere, but pretty much they killed it. And they outed it, and that was a very rare thing for Google to do. They don't like to do that sort of thing, but it was causing a real problem. They were crawling all these pages, seeing that it was just thin layered content and killing it. So they did that by noticing that blueline.jpg was pretty much a red flag. If that's on there, then we're not going to rank the pages. So they got rid of it, and they outed it. Okay, so be careful about using any old third-party software and about creating content based on templates because you can be starting to give really big clues. Because if you're going to do that, it better be something that's reputable. Okay. That's not the only time that they've outed people. And Matt, before Matt Cutts retired, he did one last outing for my friend Anne Smarty. Content builders were, content writers needed to find a marketplace for businesses. Businesses wanted content written about them, and content writers wanted to write content and put it on their blogs and get paid for it. And so Anne Smarty and other people set that marketplace up so that they could connect content writers with, or bloggers, with businesses. But the problem is that started to get out of hand. It became business in its own right. People were writing content not because they believed in what they were writing, but because they were going to get paid to do it. And so Matt Cutts outed that pretty much as a principle and said, you can't just write content just for the money, even though journalists have been doing that for decades. And in the HTML code of everybody that used myblogguest.com, in order for the tracking to work, they put tracker.myblogguest.com in the code of each of the blogs. How difficult is it for a search engine that crawls every single web page to tick that box and say, we're going to ban that website? So pretty much, myblogguest.com got killed, got crucified, and moved on to other things, quite successfully though. So what you put on your website, the code that you put on your website, gives away signals. And it can give an awful lot away about your content and your motivation. Sometimes putting stuff on your website is just damn stupid. Boo.com, how many people remember Boo.com? How old are you? Okay, really old people. Boo.com was the first big crash on the internet, really. I think the one in Europe that made the headlines anyway. And so when boo.com, clothing site, went bust, I was in agency world at the time, and I looked at the source code just as it went bust. And in the homepage, first line of the text, to the day that they went bust, they used this. Now, if you don't learn any HTML code in your life, learn this. Okay. What this is saying, for those who don't speak it, is if you're a robot, like Google, and you come to this content, please don't put it in my website, in your index. Please leave it out. And also, don't follow any of the links on the page either. Please go away. Needless to say, they never got any traffic. They hadn't appreciated the importance of Google at that time. And so don't do that. That's a red flag. Your robots.txt is important. Who you ban is important. What you control in robots.txt is important. Just having a robots.txt file is something that's helpful, because Google will have to look for the robots.txt file, whether it's there or not, because Google needs to know whether you're putting a no entry sign. They don't look at it every time they come to the website, by the way. They look at it once every day or so and update their index. They don't look at it every single time. But this is an interesting one. I don't know whether it's going to be a red flag or not, but it's banning our bot, which you can do. Actually, it's only banning our bot from our own sections, and we're also banning Google from the same one. But if you're going to ban different bots, that's a signal. It's not just because Google is allowed to read the robots.txt file, so anything that's in there, even if they're banned from the rest of the website, can be saying some information about the rest of the website as well. And if you're banning all the other bots, then it says something about why would you do that? What's the motivation behind that bot? Then on-page. There's a lot of on-page red flags that search engines come to as well. And I'm going to go through a few of them. I think I've got 10, but I'm just going to put them on one slide. Firstly, it's a red flag to Google particularly, and to search engines, if there are an awful lot more external links coming out of a web page than there are even internal links on the site. And we're probably, actually, I saw in Google's terms, they said something more than 1,600 or so, which is ridiculous. But anyway, if you've got lots and lots of outgoing links on a web page, what that says to a search engine is this is a navigational page called a thin directory. It's a directory. It's just a directory of information. It may be that it takes into account that information, but it will probably drop that page from the index, because that page is doing what Google should have done first. It's just taking a person from page A to page B. So if you've got thousands of links to other websites, or hundreds of links to other websites in a list, then that says something. It says that this is not something that Google can do, because Google should be able to bypass that and send people directly to that endpoint anyway. So be careful with lists. A few is fine. And if they're very specialist and they're really helping the user, that's fine. But if you put too many in there, then that's a problem. So you can either use our stuff, or Screaming Frog is also something good for reporting links to external links out of a website as well. A mismatched canonical tag, especially between domains. So if you say, when somebody comes into your web page, that the page that they should be indexing is on another website, on another domain, that gives a problem for Google, because Google doesn't know whether that's true. Unless you've got both of those sites in the same Google Search Console, it can't tell whether that's true. It could be that you've just scraped that content, lock, stock, and barrel, and put it on your website, including the rel canonical. So it can be a problem if you've not got your rel canonical tags set up correctly. And hreflang, I have to say an A all the time. Hreflang is also really something that if you get wrong can be problematic. Hreflang, you must really try and tell people, and it's a problem that Majestic had, so this is why I know, you must tell the search engines both endpoints. So if you've got on the home page, if you're in Spanish, if you're coming in Spanish, then the home page is es.majestic.com. Then on the Spanish page, then you've also got to tell people that if they're in English, then the English is over here as well. Otherwise, again, it can't make that connection very easily, and it's not going to trust the code because it may be malformed. So try and get those right. We've already seen it with blueline.jpg, but be wary of script names. Be wary of script names that happen to be the same as malicious code that people put on sites. It's a real problem with WordPress, actually, that people are downloading plugins without any thought about why that plugin was free in the first place. And if you're going to do that, I think that causes some problems because a lot of them contain malicious code. Next year, we're going to have the GDPR regulations coming in, and a lot of those are going to be potentially illegal for you to put on your websites. It's worth you having a look at that because you may be giving data to a third party, and that makes them a data controller, and that means that, sorry, you're a data controller and they're a data processor, and that means that they have to operate to your guidelines, but you can't tell them what those guidelines are. So third-party scripts especially can be very, very dangerous. The wrong UA code, the UA code is in your Google Analytics. If you got that on the wrong websites, that's a sign of a problem because Google's going to go and see that content. It's going to see a user agent code that is not one that's verified for that domain, and therefore that could be a problem, and that's a big red flag. Pop-ups, we've been told by Google, if they're big and annoying now, will damage your rankings and possibly get you completely blown out the water. And if you've got header checkers in there, if you've got header areas that are showing that the content was produced in 2042, or if you have it so that every time you load, it says this page has changed, and the only thing that's changed is the time on the page, then these can be problems for the search engine as well. Because what you're doing is saying, come back to my site, come back to my site, come back to my, eat my resources, eat Google's resources, eat Google's resources. Think about Google as a resource engine more than a search engine, and you're getting halfway there. And of course, now it's pretty obvious, make sure that your HTTPS loads, and primarily try and make sure that that's the only thing that your users see from here on in. There's a tool out there called Varvy, which I quite like. I don't use it very often, but it's there, and it's a good, easy way to go and check some of the basics on your website. And one of the things that it does check is the basics of whether it thinks you've got paid links on that web page or that website. And if you have, you should probably remove those, because if Varvy can understand that, then you could bet that Google's going to be understanding it as well. And then lastly, I want to talk about feature snippets, a few small things before I go into one example of a PBN that tried to screw us over big time. Really, feature snippets and schemas also have red flags now as well. This is a case study that's up there. There's a fair few of Google penalizing people for inappropriate schema and markup. And four things that I think that you should be aware of is, the first is algorithmically generated scores or reviews on your website. So I know this because I thought, hey, I've got this score, TrustFlow, for every single web page on the planet. Wouldn't it be cool if Majestic put the TrustFlow in as a featured snippet for each one of our search results, so that when Google came along and said, right, Microsoft, and then result number 1, Microsoft. Result number 2, how influential is Microsoft? I thought that was going to be a really cool idea. So I had a talk with a Googler about it, and they said, you will get screwed, because it will be seen as an automatic, algorithmically generated review, and Google does not like that. They want a human element in that decision-making process. So don't use algorithmically generated scores or reviews. Secondly, don't put the same markup on every page. Particularly when it comes to what these films are about. Don't try and put up descriptions about the whole website on every single web page, because Google wants to see the markup to be about the content on that page. As I said before, Google operates primarily at a page level. It doesn't work at a site level. And also, similarly, of course, if the markup doesn't relate to the content in any way at all. One other thing that I saw in the, I haven't seen examples of it, but I have seen in the guidelines, abuse in the markup is seen as a problem, and Google will discount if you start using foul language in the markup. At least that's what they say on the guidelines, but I've not seen seen one. The last thing I want to say about snippets is, if you're going to put rich schema markup up, you are losing the visit to your website. It's a pretty good idea of schema markup in the real world coming out. And of course, somebody's typed in Finding Dory. Google has given, and I'm sorry, Yoast, but anyway, so Google gives that information, and Rolling Stone gives the information about the reviews. It's got the advert there, but it's not necessarily going to make the user click through. And since then, they've got rid of the logos as well. So what you're doing is giving the information directly to the user, but you have to remember that that's likely to appear in locations that are not going to send the user directly to your website. So the best way to think about it is that snippets give your data away for free. They don't have to come to your website to see the information in that snippet, because it's going to be put into the knowledge graph. So you need to follow the money in your head to understand your business approach as to why you're doing that. And I think that there's a lot more that we all need to do to start thinking about that. Because if I had put my trust flow scores, my citation flow scores up in the snippets, and even if I hadn't got banned, nobody would have had to come to my website and buy my product to see that data. It would have been a bad business decision as well as a red flag. And I think we need to think about that quite a lot, because Google is changing the way in which it works. It's moving towards entities. It needs entities for the phone stuff, but people don't go to websites when they're talking to a phone. So, last couple of minutes, I think, and this is something that started coming through on my emails every morning. I get an email every morning of new links to my website, which comes through from the Majestic system. And all of a sudden, I got these websites all linking to me. lovemylinks.com, glr.com, traveldrama.com, sites I'd never heard of, all coming through a redirect, and this was a bit of a panic to me. So I had a look at this website, and I have great pleasure in telling you that this site is spam. So, lovemylinks.com, I wouldn't recommend you going there very much. But anyway, lovemylinks.com. The interesting thing here is that there is no link to Majestic on this web page. There's no link to this to Majestic at all, unless you try and look at our website, this website, with the user agent of our bot. If you look at it with the user agent of our bot, and then you look at the source code, then it starts prefetching information that is from other websites and other web pages. And then if you go to this one here, bitsoapbox.com, then eventually in here, we've got a link that comes through that's getting into the data, and eventually we're seeing a whole load of no-follow links coming through to the Majestic website from ads.com that are redirecting through. So what this system is doing is it's trying to put a negative SEO attack, I suppose, on me. It's trying to send all of the bot traffic back to Majestic to confuse Majestic, which is fine. You can do that, but it sets a big red flag for Majestic at least. And also, I think, for Google, because Google can always change their user agent just as easily as anybody else can. Very, very last thing. Even if there's no HTML on footprint, then there is quite an easy way for Google to find a link network. One methodology is if you can find one website, like lovemylinks.com, with paid links on it, and you extract the URLs, which are usually to completely unrelated websites, you can then put those into a hub finder. So we have a tool called Click Hunter. Google has similar sorts of networks. And Aaron Wall started this with a thing called Hub Finder. And what that will do, what Click Hunter will do, is it will find all the websites that link to these 10 web pages. And so if these 10 web pages are all paid links on a website, then it's going to find the rest of that network. And you're going to find all the websites that are linking to the same 10 pages or 3 or 4 of those same pages, which is going to be a big red flag. So PBNs should be a little bit more wary. They can get found out, and even if they're banning our bot, it doesn't matter. Google, of course, is using its own bot. Okay. So I'm going to leave you with this. 400 billion stars in the Milky Way, trillion pages on the internet, but only 8 billion people to read them. Thanks very much. Cheers.
Now that was interesting.
Thank you.
That was really cool. This must have raised red flags for some people. And I'm sure we will have some questions over here as well. Anyone want to kick it off? Or else, otherwise, I'm going to kick it off because I definitely have a question. There's a question over there.
You don't get the... you only wanted to do it because of that, didn't you?
Yeah, where's that thing?
There it is, there it is. See, I've got to get more questions this way.
Cool.
Hello, yeah. We've got a question. You've talked about...
Yep.
You talked about cross-domain canonicals?
Yes.
But it wasn't quite clear to me on why you didn't...
Well, the way I see it, Marcus will tell me you got it wrong, Dixon. You know, and if Marcus says I've got it wrong, then I'll accept I got it wrong. But cross-domain canonicals, when I sat down with a Googler a while back, they were a problem. So a cross-domain canonical, if you put a web page up and you say, right, my cross-domain, I think that the original source of this is this page over here, and you want that one to start ranking. The interesting thing is that Google doesn't know necessarily that that page thinks about that. That other page may not want to be ranked. That other page may have no connection with you whatsoever and doesn't necessarily want your endorsement, especially if you're already on a penalized web page. So if your penalized web pages suddenly start putting up rel canonicals to your competitor, for example, then this is saying a particularly negative signal to those people. So it's a red flag, but it's not an automatic problem. What it says to Google is, I need some kind of clarification that the other site agrees with that. And the way that it would like that verification is if both those websites are verified in the same Google Search Console. That's a way of doing that. Or another way of doing that is by making sure that that page says that it's the original version of this content. So the danger can be if spammed banned web pages start doing rel canonicals to their competitor, then Google doesn't want to pass any of that juice, that love over, because it'll just be passing the penalty over.
Okay, but say that those domains are within your own...
yeah, then I'm saying if they're within your own control, then put them all in the same Google Search Console so that Google can see that there's...
That would be a requirement, to put them in the same Search Console.
That's how I do it. There may be other ways of doing it, but that's how I would do it. I would say, look, if these are all the same, controlled by the same person, tell Google they're controlled by the same person. Google loves that because then it gives away a whole load of other secrets like your link network. But that's how Google would like you to control it, I think. So does that answer?
Yeah.
That's good.
Anyone else?
I'm not a Googler, so maybe.
Watch the queue.
Well, I've read quite a few opinions about no-follow links.
Yep.
How would you say Google values these links nowadays? Okay,
here's my take on no-follow links. I think that no-follow was the first example of Google getting ideas above its station. So Google decided, right, we have a problem. All these link comment spam is, and all the people are creating user-generated content all over the web, and they're creating links, and our bot is now following these and treating them as gospel. And it's very easy to set a bot up, do chat comments all over the world, and create lots and lots of links to your website. And so we want to allow webmasters to control that, so we're going to come out with this no-follow thing, which will discount it and stuff. And we'll be really good. We'll get Yahoo involved in it and Microsoft, as it was then, involved in it as well. So everybody agrees, right? Most people don't give a crap. Most people don't, most people building their own website don't really care about no-follow or not. They just want to build a website. They don't really care about search. That's Google's problem, somebody else's problem. So most of them don't really put no-follows in there. So it turned out that after years of doing this, Matt Cutts once said, actually, less than 1%, and he said, and I misquote, a small percentage of 1% of links are no-followed. In other words, after several years, it's a very small amount of links. On top of that, certain people in the audience were also putting no-follow sites on internal links as well to try and do page sculpting, to change things around. The Wikipedia, which is, let's face it, one of the best, most authoritative sites according to Google, although I did find a population with a city with a population of 0 in there yesterday, is a good link. So I think that Google has had to discount the concept of no-follow because it didn't achieve its original purpose. I'm not saying that the signal is so weak either way is the problem, and it can be distorted in either direction. I think most people will be happy to have a link from Wikipedia as long as it's on the right kind of context page. And I think they would be happy that a comment in a WordPress blog is no-followed because there is no concept of quality associated with it. So I would take no-follow with a pinch of salt. I would get a link for the quality. We do map all the no-follow ones as well. If you think otherwise, then you can take that view. But I would say get a link. If it's a good link, don't get a link if it's a bad link. Yeah. There you go. Yeah. 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 Of course, a no-follow link will hardly ever penalize you, so that's great. Yeah.
Next one in the front. Just throw it.
Okay, I also have a question.
Could you stand up, please? Could you stand up? Yep. Awesome.
I also have a question that's related to no-follow links.
Okay.
I have this SEO project for this customer, and part of this project is, well, a kind of directory with links going outside. You mentioned, well, it will probably be penalized if it gets over 1,400 something.
I think it's going to take a while for you to get some traction. Let's put it that way. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, of course, I planned already the no-follow links.
Yep.
Suppose I would also arrange return links because the outgoing links will go to sort of partners. So we can arrange return links.
Yep.
Will it then help?
Sorry?
Will it help that with, let's say, the positive signals?
Yeah.
And what do you recommend in this case?
Would it help to get internal links coming, external links linking into the website? Will that help?
Yes, and how can I prevent the penalty for too much outgoing links?
Yes, although the two are not necessarily corrected. If you've got lots of links going out of the website that Google thinks are a directory that Google should be doing better, in other words, Google's a directory. It's just a directory. So if you are producing a directory, you're a competitor to Google. Follow the money. The money is Google wants the advert and it wants to go straight to the end site. It doesn't want to pass through your site, and so it just wants to pass through. So the challenge is that you're now competing. Your customer is competing with Google, so your customer needs a business proposition that says why people need to go to it. And there are plenty. Rightmove is a big one in the UK. If I want to go and find a property, I don't go to Google, I go to Rightmove. Uber is another really good one. You don't call for a taxi anymore, you call for an Uber. So you can do it, but you need a business proposition that is going to take you out of that mentality of being a thin level directory. However, that said, so you could get penalized anyway for Panda-based problems, not for Penguin-based problems with your business setup as it sounds. It doesn't mean to say that internal links are going to help that. I mean, links into your website will help that. If all of a sudden the BBC, RT.com, CNN, and the government of the Netherlands all link to you from the homepage, then it's going to take longer for Google to get a signal to say that this is a bad site. It will take longer for them to make that penalty, and a human being may get involved, whereas before it might have been an algorithm. Yeah, so good links are good links, but crap websites are crap websites.
Okay, yeah, well, there's a business proposition, so, and okay, I will arrange then proper link building from high quality links.
Yeah, I mean, proper link building, good link building, using PR. Listen to Laura later on. I think she's going to be talking about PR and link building. That's great. But manipulating just getting links or using your system to just send out links and paying for those links, that's a problem if you can't find another way of getting traffic into that website in the first place. There's a lady behind you. Oh, she's a tech SEO person, so that's going to be dangerous.
Sorry. So when we're talking about directories, what's your feeling on the importance of directory listings for local businesses, like local citation websites, that's what they do?
I think Yoast has pretty much mopped up that market now, hasn't they? Kind of like go to Yoast and it kind of deals with all the bits and pieces. I think the main problem with most of the directories is the PageRank or citation flow or the equity that goes through to those individual listings is usually very, very small. And you don't have to go to a directory we've never heard of to see it. You can go to something like Mashable, I think, or even the BBC. You know, people would generally say the BBC is a reputable website. You know, most people, apart from, you know, people on the wrong side of the political divide in the States, maybe. But if you go onto there, a news article is very important for as long as it's news. And then BBC drops it. It's still on the system for years and years gone past. But there are no internal links to that article. So unless that article has got external links going into it, there is no link equity left. And this happens a lot with the directories, because the directories, you put your bid in, so to speak, you get your listing, and you've got a page on a site. But really, in order for Google's bot to come and find that page, it's got a link to that, link to that, link to that, link to that. And Google has already said, oh, this has got 20,000 other websites on it that it's just outbound links, so I'm going to stop after 2 links. So that's where the problem comes. You've got, directories tend to have lots and lots and lots and lots of content, and they contribute towards this 112, 114 pages before we've read it even once. And then that's diluting the value of their site massively and very, very quickly. So if it's a very targeted and appropriate directory, then it's very, very useful. If it's not a targeted and appropriate directory, then the maths breaks down very quickly in this big data game.
Thank you.
There's one in the back. How much time have I got?
That's really the last one then.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for the questions.
Thanks for the great talk first. I have 2 questions actually, if it's possible.
Combine them.
Okay,
it's lunch afterwards. No.
Internal links and external links. What's your view on red flags and external site-wide links?
External site-wide links. Okay, so I haven't got data on it, but we've just produced in Majestic, we want to know as well. So we've just now, one of the reasons why we're reporting the outbound links on the web pages that are linking to you, we're also now reporting the number of other links and the number of external domains, so that you can get a pretty good idea of if it's likely to be a site-wide link. So we now have surfaced that information for the whole world, so you can look at it, anybody can go and look at it, and I hope that some SEOs will go and analyze that data, because until now, you could only do that judgment by uncertainty problem that we had at the start, where you're making an assumption that, oh, there's a site-wide link and I'm banned, so therefore these two are correlated. You can't make that connection unless you can see that for a really large sample. So now, hopefully, we can find massive samples and somebody can do that maths and we can work out whether a site-wide is a problem or not. Anecdotally, it became a problem on blog rolls. It was mentioned as a problem on blog rolls, and everyone's dropped all their blog rolls. But I kept mine up there. You know, my friends on the blog, I kind of, you know, they're still my friends on the blog. I couldn't see a reason why, but I've only got 5. You know, I just put 5 people up there saying other people I think have got interesting content. None of them asked me to take it down. If they did, I would. Of course, I would. But I don't know the answer to your question, but I'm as interested as you, because when we all discussed it before, a couple of years ago, that blog rolls are bad, there was no real evidence to prove that was the case.
Okay, thanks. And the other question is, when you have a menu, like a site-wide menu for your own site, the internal linking, how is it valued differently if you link from inside your own content?
Yeah. Sorry? What's the question?
So the internal linking structure, if you want to get it right, you have
yep.
Normally you have like a menu which is seen all over the site.
Yeah, yeah. Well, lots of people talk about the hierarchical menu structure, and I think that's a perfectly appropriate way. So if you try and flat link every single page on your website, so every page effectively links to every single other page, then you're creating a very, very flat website. So what you're asking, you may not be how it all works out, but if it wasn't for the rest of the world linking in, and they'll all link to the home page, then you're saying every page on my website is of the same value, really, from the mathematical point of view. So if that's true, fine, link every page to every single other page on the website. If that's not true, then help a search engine work out the hierarchy by grouping your links together. I think my favorite, my structure would be hierarchical link structures. So, you know, Scottish airports, British airports list the airports, but then occasionally say, right, and you can get from Edinburgh to Luton, and a link in the context of the content on the page as well. But I wouldn't, as a general rule, try and link every page to every other.
Yeah, but in content, internal links are valued differently.
I'm going to get this up. Maybe this is something for
in
the break, because we're actually running into the break now.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thanks very much for your time. Cheers.